Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm one of your co-hosts, Rico Borrego,
I am your other co-host, Tony Borrego.
and this is the podcast known as Relatively Sound, the podcast that is so deep it's meaningless. Today, Tony and I are back. It's been a little bit since we've recorded, even though the episodes have been still being released weekly. We stockpiled a bunch of episodes, so there's a little housekeeping to do. One being, if you've been listening to the podcast in order, the last episode was our album for Soundgarden. And at the end of that episode, I mentioned we had some very cool special episodes coming up in the future. We recorded that before we did our interview with our friend Matt and Barrett Jones, the music producer. So that was what I was referencing when I made that comment at the end of the last episode. We released them out of order. So I mean, we still have cool episodes coming up in the future, but those were like the really special episodes. Also, this is our second, hopefully, going to be our second video version of the podcast. So if you're watching us on YouTube, thank you for watching us. Um, Tony, you had something you wanted to say too, I believe.
Um, I'm getting over being sick.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
You said you wanted
Getting
to
over.
mention it, so I'm giving you the spotlight.
Yes. So I may be sipping on some tea. Not to be rude to all you viewers, but
No, I've been fighting kind of a cold too for like the last like month. So like everyone's been getting sick.
yeah, definitely the time of year. Hope should be able to pull through the episode though. So we're in good hands.
And for today's episode, we're back with our album for album series. And we are back to the Tragically Hip. It's my turn this week. And I was gonna give Tony like I had a couple different options, and I was like, screw it, let's just do another hip album. Um, and last time I went with my favorite hip album, Phantom Power. And I know it's an album you're still warming up to, but it wasn't an immediate first love, like fully completely. Um, and because those are the only two albums you've heard so far, I was like, I think you got to go Day for Night next, which is the album that followed Fully Completely, released in 1994, I believe, or five, 1994 or five, 94. Um, and I just thought I feel like it's more in your path than something like Phantom Power. It's a little bit more raw, rough around the edges. Um, and actually, I have the album right here. This is the vinyl version. Looks a little different than the glare is terrible, but
Because
little
that's
different.
silver, right? Where the normal one's blue, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think the normal one has some silver in it too, but yeah, this one's like all silver. And there's I think a version that it's on silver vinyl, or maybe it's transparent, but this one's just normal black.
Well, I'll say
Uh,
that album cover matches the production.
oh, okay. We're getting into it a little early. So yeah, I mean, I gave you this album because I'm like, probably the next hip album I give you will be the one that came after this, which means that you'll have that 4 album run fully completely, day for night. The next one, which would be Trouble at the Hen House, and then Phantom Power. And it's a good kind of evolution of the band.
Is that kind
Um,
of considered like their like prime period or
yeah, yeah, like a lot of people, some people would even say the album before. I mean, some people would say up to the debut. A lot of like hardcore fans or early fans would say maybe the debut to this album. Some people, I think the next album it was too experimental for them, and then some people thought Phantom Power was a little too mainstream, I think. But yeah, I think a lot of people would say from at least Fully Completely to Phantom Power is like their sweet spot. Um, I actually think I would I mean, I love everything that comes after Phantom Power 2, so I would at least include the following two albums, Music at Work and In Violet Light, which In Violet Light's actually probably my second favorite hip album. So you'll eventually begin in that album too. So, but why don't you tell us what like your first thoughts while I arrange this record in the background?
Well, real quick, so I'm going to correct you. You had mentioned I'm still warming up to Phantom Power. I would go as far to say that I have warmed up to it. Um, I listened to Day for Night, and my first listen was underwhelming. I think that's
Oh,
just the best word to say. Nothing drew me in particular necessarily. Um, I had a really hard time separating the songs from each other, and production sounded like wet cardboard. Um, so so I wasn't really getting it. Like I knew it was gonna click more for me, and I'm like, okay, let me do some homework here. I had re-listened to Phantom Power, and was instantly way more appreciative of the songs. The production nails it, and I listened to Fully Completely as well. Kind of skimmed through it to get a good baseline, and I kind of made some conclusions for myself.
Okay, let's hear them.
So, let me know what you think. I think these are fair. So, part of the hip with Day for Night kind of comes off more jam bandy,
For
kind of
sure.
more where guys jamming in a garage. And that's not a slam. But you look at Fully Completely, and it sounds like a band where the songs are written pretty strategically. The riffs stand out from each other, there's sections, the song moves, the vocals really refined, which I love. But you can argue that the production is good, but not spectacular. The drums are maybe a
Yeah,
little squishy, and the production's really consistent, which I think the that's elevates the album because of the songwriting being, each song feels really separate. With Phantom Power, even though maybe some of the songs didn't really hook me, and I think the only song I'm still kind of trying to vibe with is Membership.
yeah, that was
Um,
my last one to really get into.
right. But it really blew me away. I'm like, wow, the production is actually really fitting for the band here.
You
And
like
it
it better than
seems
the production on Fully Completely?
I think so. I think
Wow.
so.
Because I don't
I
even,
think
I don't think I would say that. And Phantom Power is my favorite hip album.
okay. For me, it's kind of in between as far as the songwriting goes, kind of in between Day for Night and Fully Completely. Definitely its own thing though. And I kind of like the blurring on some of the rhythm guitars in Phantom Power, and the acoustic sounds are really nice as well. But okay, so let's get back on course here today for night. Um, Definitely just listening and listening was helping, and I checked out the lyrics too, and that helps set the scenes for these songs, help separate them a bit. And so maybe let's just go. Let's start from the beginning of the album.
Okay.
Grace 2. It rocks. It does. Highlight for me, definitely the bass work. There's a lot of cool chord stuff he's
Yes.
doing here at the beginning and at the end. At the end, the song gets big. It feels powerful. But I was really hesitant to the song, and it's still not top. It's still not like top 5 for me. Um,
Interesting. Why?
well, this is something that kind of bothers me with the album. The vocals aren't very catchy to me. They're not very hooky. When the music changes and you get like those backup vocals, like the vocal melody doesn't change. The lead, Gord is still kind of yelling with the same amount of intensity. Um, I do like the backup vocals they add. Probably the best sounding backup vocals on the whole record. We will get into that later. Um, so yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a slow burn, but by the end of it, it does jam out. And honestly, when I first heard the intro of the song, I was expecting something more like "We'll Go Too," kind of because it's
I
kind
see
of like
that.
almost a happy melody at first.
Hmm.
But then he starts singing a bit. Lyrics don't sound too happy. Um, the first of two times he mentions downtown in there. I don't know if that's going to be something we talk about later. So I'm curious. I'm curious. I know I've been rambling here. What do people think of Grace 2? What is the opinion? Because I feel like people probably really like that one, but it's not one that stands out for me. Like it is separated from the other songs, but as far as like knockout,
Now, this is considered like a Stone Cold classic.
I knew it. I
Like
knew it.
this is well, I mean, first of all, this album, if you didn't check the Wikipedia page, it had 6 singles,
Oh,
but I
they
don't
found
know.
6 songs that were single material on here.
Well, so Grace 2 was the first single. Um, and then you had Greasy Jungle, and then Nautical Disaster, then So Hard Done By, and then Scared, and then Thugs. But what's weird is I don't think Scared and So Hard Done By had music videos, but I know Grace 2, Nautical, and Thugs did. So we got to remember too, like I guess they probably just do things a little different in Canada.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
but yeah, Grace 2 is considered like one of their best, one of their most memorable songs. And a lot of that has to do, and I was gonna suggest a couple live versions for you to listen to, but this is like a song that goes hard live. And
I could see that.
there's so, you know, they recently released that Woodstock documentary of Woodstock 99, where like, or not 99, 90 was after Phantom Power came out. So maybe it was 99. Yeah. Where it was a disaster. And like, yeah, I don't know if you yeah, Woodstock 99 was like disastrous in terms of like the crowd work was terrible. Like, like the sound was terrible too and stuff like that. And um, I loved, so the Hip was one of the acts and they put on a fantastic show from the YouTube clips I've seen, but the mix was terrible. And they opened with Grace 2, and Grace 2 was a constant opener for them. They would open a lot of shows with Grace 2. Um, and you can barely hear the bass, which sucks because that's sort of the highlight of the song, and it's how the song
I
begins,
far
besides the drums. But like Gord's performance in that specific Woodstock show is phenomenal. And like I like a lot of shows and concerts, and specific performances of songs, he would start like rambling during like the middle sections of the songs and the outros. And in that particular version, he started singing lyrics to multiple future Hip songs and making up like weird stories. And it's definitely something I'm gonna send you the clip later on so you can watch it. So it's definitely
these ramblings and lyrics and stuff, are these like improv kind of, or are they like prepared little like stanzas he's
I think a
throwing
little
in?
of both. I think what he would do is he would always have a notebook with him, like I'm sure a lot of writers do, and jot down like phrases or words that he found interesting. And then when they would play shows live, he would start throwing out some of these ideas in certain songs, especially during like the more jam sections of the songs, and work on those little, new lyrics every night until the band got time to go back in the studio. And then he would be like, okay, I have this whole like set of lyrics. Let's figure out what music to put it with. So, oh, I
Oh,
lost. Oh,
that
there we
that was
go.
my bad. Was
We're
muted.
good.
That is very cool to hear though. I do like to like improv and
Yeah.
kind of trying things out live. That has been something I've been trying to be more fearless about.
True,
So
but it won't change the way you feel about the studio version.
right, and I was gonna say that I do see how this could be a song that is better live, and I think kind of you explaining this, I think I kind of know why this song kind of rubs me the wrong way. I feel like Gord could have done a much better performance, whether that was being more dynamic or maybe I don't know. I mean, the lyrics not my favorite off the record, but I remember I wrote down here the secret rules of engagement are hard to endorse when the appearance of conflict meets the appearance of force. I don't even know what that means, but it sounds badass.
Well, and to be fair, there's a lot of songs on this album where they're like they're like telling stories, but we're not quite sure what the stories are.
I have
And
maybe
and a lot of this particular album, one of the influences for this album that Gord has gone on record to say is that it was inspired by film noir, which, if you know, is
uh
like a film style like from the 40s and 50s.
oh, okay.
So older films, and there are songs on here where sometimes they'll do specific references to certain films from that period of filmmaking. Um, and Grace 2 is one of the songs where like some people think it's about, if you like read the lyrics, it could be about like a story of this like prostitute and this other guy. And like if you use that as your narrative, you can follow the lyrics and you're like, oh, that makes sense. But then like apparently Gord would tell people like he'd meet people and they'd ask, "Oh, what is Grace 2 about?" And he'd say like, "Oh, when I was younger, my family had a canoe and the name of it was called Grace 2." but then he'd tell someone else a different story the next time they asked him. So, kind of he was trying to keep things, I think, a little, secretive, like to make the song more, universal for people.
Build the lore.
Yeah. Grace 2 is
Um,
probably my favorite on the album. So I'm a little
whoa,
sad that, yeah,
whoa.
because I don't know, like, again, live performances during, okay, so I don't know if this was the first time, but right before this album came out, or maybe right when it came out, they actually got on SNL because Dan Aykroyd, who was at the time on SNL, he's Canadian and he loved the hip. And I think he asked Lorne Michaels, like, hey, can they be a musical guest one of these days? And he got him to say yes. So they came on and they did Grace 2 and they did Nautical Disaster. And um, that performance, he starts the song with, he said, I'm tragically hip.
Okay,
And it would
that's
be a
cool.
thing that he would do at a lot of future concerts. And if that's like, so like, when they're starting a show with this song, that bass line comes in and the drums and the guitar, and then Gord's vocals come in and he sings that line where he's like, referencing the band's name. It's like awesome. It's just like, even listening to it like on a live concert, it just has so much energy. So, but I will say, like, songwriting standpoint, yeah, it's not maybe not the best on the album or the best in their catalog. Like, yeah, like the lyrics are kind of like they're not, I don't think, the best on the album. Um, the singing, yeah, is not the best. I do think
I
like
do like his cries kind of at the end. I think that does add to the drama of like this narrative,
and
this
this was one of
scene.
the last songs that they played live during their final concert. Um, and the line of him screaming it, he's singing him here now, no. And during that last tour, where basically everyone knew it was the last tour because, he had he was terminally ill and he did that line at the end. There's videos on YouTube where he would just scream those lines and it just makes you emotional if you're really into this band, like I am. And, because that line of like him here now, no, like, yeah, it's kind of, I don't know. It just with the knowledge that like this is the last time they're going to play live, it's kind of bittersweet.
Was he someone with terminal illness that was really public about it, or was it something that he kind of kept hidden until like,
N-
near the end?
no, he like once he found out, I think it made news pretty quick. Like
Okay.
because he was like they had just released I think their 12th studio album, Man Machine Poem, which was written before he ever knew he had brain cancer, and they were about to tour for that album. And that's when he found out. And I think he probably had asked his doctor, like, can I go on tour? Like, and I think the doctor told him, like, you can. It's just going to be hard, because you're going to start not remembering things and it's just going to be very taxing on your body. And the band decided we need to go at least do one more set of shows in Canada to say, like, in case this is the last tour, like a final goodbye. And they went out and did like 30 songs every night. So,
30 songs. Holy
yeah.
shit.
And then during the midst of all that, like after the tour, he worked on a lot of albums, music. And one of my favorite albums of all time is his solo album, Introduce Yourself, where I've told you this before. Every song on the album he wrote specifically about a person or something in his life. And we're getting really off topic now, I understand, but um, some of this context I think does change some of these songs. And one of these songs, I'm going to bring it up again, this whole subject matter, during another song because it was a song they played live during their last tour that had extra meaning because of all that. But yeah, to sum it up, Grace 2 is considered like a classic. A lot of people will say it's in their top three hip songs, me
Wow.
included. Um, but
I
yeah,
have a
it's
hard
not the
time
best.
seeing. I That really baffles me. It's that high up. I had a feeling it was going to be a classic I wouldn't understand. What
Yeah.
one last thing, which now sounds, I don't know, really insignificant to bring up after all this info, is when they go to the guaranteed section where he says that in the backup vocals,
Yeah.
the riff kind of reminds me of "Raise Love" by Brad. band we always bring up.
Oh, I'll
Bum
have
bum
to.
bum 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 bum. Like the little bass break when he does like that
Oh,
vocal ad
okay.
lib.
Okay.
Um, just a little thing, and that kind of
Yeah.
helped me get into the song, trying to relate it to something I knew.
Well, I wonder what year the Brad album came out. It's pretty close, right?
I
Probably
mean,
predates it. Was it like 92? No,
er,
90.
like,
You know
but what are
what?
the
I
odds
have
that
Google right in front of me.
This Canadian band ripped off this little local
No, I'm
Seattle
not saying they
band,
ripped
or
them off.
vice versa?
I'm just curious how close the albums were released. Shame came out in 93, so 1 year before.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
shame on you,
Um,
Hip.
okay, that was like I get the pun. But yeah,
What
so
was there a pun?
you said
Oh,
shame.
yeah, yeah, the album Shame from it. Okay, yeah. All right. Well, anywho's,
But yeah, like
so
I understand we're like what, like 20 minutes into this episode, we've only talked about one song, but like
and
this
we
it
both feel very different about it. So
yeah, but this is like one of their bigger singles from this album. And like I said, it's a classic live one, and I think I can send you a couple live performances that you will like say, "Oh yeah, this is way better." I mean, the studio version is great. The guitar solos at the end are fantastic, and the bass work, like you said, is kind of the star of the show. But um, yeah, it's. I think when I first heard, I started getting into the hip. It was not a song that I immediately gravitated towards. It had to kind of grow on me.
right.
So then I'm
Well,
curious what you thought about the next song, because the next song, it does have some of that jam band quality near the end, but it's a lot faster in tempo. It's not as relaxed as Grace 2, which
what
is
what do you
the song
think I'm going to think
Daredevil.
about this song?
So
I'm going to be
Daredevil,
asking you that question a lot. What do you think I'm going to say about it?
I think you're gonna like Daredevil more than Grace. I think you're gonna have the same problems with the like you don't think the vocal performance is as great, but I'd be shocked if you didn't like the music, because like the music in Daredevil, the bass work is fantastic too. Like at the end, like during the jams, like. But again, and I said this too, maybe not on this episode yet, but I agree with you. The production on this Hip album is maybe the worst out of all their albums. Like,
I think the production only benefits like maybe like two or three
yeah.
songs.
And I've gotten used to it now that I've heard the album dozens of times, but like,
Right.
yeah, it's not. I and I get kind of what they're going for. Like they went from Fully Completely, which is a super clean, polished sound, to like kind of grungy, more raw, more rough around the edges. But I don't really like when bands. I don't like the lo-fi sound that much, if I'm being honest. But some people love that lo-fi sound.
If you're going to go lo-fi, I think it needs to sound very intentional and be very very lo-fi. Like this just kind of sounds like a poorly produced record, or like, like, I don't know, bad studio, low budget or something. So Daredevil, maybe my like it's bottom 3 for me on the album.
Wow.
I know this is not a good start. This is not a good start here for my take on this album. Now,
Yeah, you're
okay, right off the bat, I got excited for the song. I heard the distorted jangly guitar, that with the tempo and the energy, it reminded me of El Dorado, closing Fully Completely track. And I was like, okay, cool.
okay.
We had a slow burn of a song to start off, and I was like, okay, I was hesitant, but now we're picking it up. I can deal with this.
You can
I
deal
I,
with
I
this.
even like the chord changes in it. But I think what really holds the song back is the vocals. I even like the lyrics. I we can get on in a second, but the vocals are buried. Gord sounds kind of croaky. My least favorite backup vocals in the album. They just muddy up the sound, and they're
I
kind of
mean,
offensive to the ears a little bit.
Paul's backing vocals are an acquired taste, and I don't know. This one might have Sinclair too doing backing vocals. I can't remember off the top of my head,
Well,
but
here's my thing. So you said Paul is Paul the bassist?
no, Paul is the rhythm guitars.
Like who does the backup vocals on Fully Completely? Because those backup vocals, no
Those are
complaints.
most depends. They're mostly Paul, but like I think on at the 100th Meridian, that's Gord Sinclair, the bass player.
Okay, okay,
But on most of like on Courage and stuff and some of those other songs, it's mostly Paul.
yeah, because Paul kills it on Courage. Sounds
Yeah.
great. Yeah. So for me, I don't know. Um, I mean, the bass work does develop near the end of it, and I do like the effects on the guitar solo.
It's a little
I
wah,
don't.
right?
Yeah, yeah. It gets pretty chaotic, and I don't know what to focus on first. The guitar work on this record, I have mixed feelings for. I think there is some cool, subtle things that I like with kind of the arrangements. Well, that's a case by case thing. And I also think there's some really chaotic kind of blurs of guitar, like this ending where it's all messy, or
Yeah.
even like Grace 2, where it just sounds big, even though you can't really pick up what's going on. That being said, none of the guitar work on this album holds up to the best moments on Fully Completely or the best moments on Phantom Power.
Which I'm
Um,
surprised you feel that way because I thought you would like the jam band kind of sound. But now that I think about it, I guess you're not really like, I guess when we listen to like Neil Young and like Crazy Horse, like you're more about the acoustic songs than like when Neil Young does like a 8 minute guitar solo.
okay, here's my thing. I do like jam band stuff, and like Primus, especially live, they will take a song and put like a 5 minute jam in the middle of it, and I love it. But for me, with this record in particular, if you're gonna do a jam band thing, one, it's got to sound good, and the production does not benefit it in
I
that
would
way.
agree.
Secondly, I think a lot of times with jam bands, you're taking turns on solos and stuff, and there's not really a lot of that. And heck, there's not that many ad libs in to kind of fill out that space. There is some, and I do like the ad libs we hear with the vocals. Um, but I will say, gotta praise it. Arguably, maybe out of those three albums, the best bass work overall.
I agree. Yeah. I think Sinclair's bass on this album is better. Not better, it's just the songs for some reason gives him more like space to show off.
Right, right. And even though it's like quite a spongy bass tone, he just commits to his playing. His playing is
Yeah.
fantastic on this record. It's quite noticeable, and much like Grace 2, it can really, really take a song to the next level, take it up a notch.
Yeah, and
So
I know you said you enjoyed the lyrics on Daredevil, and I like them too. I mean, it's basically about a true life story of people getting in barrels and going off like a waterfall,
right, which
and that
Primus has a song called Over the Falls that kind of,
oh,
in not as much detail, kind of references
so
that
that's why
stuff.
you like the lyrics because.
Yeah. It-
But I like
hey,
the ending one where he's like the real question is how we don't jump to, you know?
yeah, yeah, that's right. That's right. I remember reading that. This
Yeah,
song is hard to hear the lyrics on, but when I
I
read
agree. I
them,
agree.
I was like, okay, this is cool stuff.
Yeah.
All right.
So I don't know then how you're gonna feel about. So okay, I'm kind of going opposite of what I thought because I thought you'd like the first two, and I thought you would not like the next song, "Greasy Jungle." But now I'm gonna say "Greasy Jungle" is like in your top three favorites.
Yeah, it is.
Oh my
This song is
god.
so good.
Oh
It
my
is okay.
god.
Think about it. It's the first song so far in this record. We're only 3 songs in that actually has a memorable melody. It is the first song that's catchy.
You mean the melody of them just going ah,
Yeah, as opposed
which
to
I
Grace
like.
2, I come from downtown. I mean, it's an actual melody. Gord's voice is enjoyable to hear, and I actually like the lyrics a lot too.
They're interesting
Um,
lyrics. It's one of those songs where again I don't know if I really know what the song's about, but it has some cool lyrics in it.
it kind of sounds like, and I kind of referenced that. What is that website you sent me?
The Hip Museum.
Something After Dark, though.
Well, the like it's just called the Hip Museum, but there's a spot on that museum on that website called a Museum After Dark where you can click on certain songs from each album where they have references for each song when it comes to the lyrics.
And that title, it comes from one of these songs, right?
Well, it comes like the full title Museum After Dark comes from Wheat Kings from Foley, but on Scared on this album, there's also lyrics with um about museums after dark. So
Okay. So okay, the lyrics to me kind of sound like okay, and I'm gonna probably sound like an idiot. There's so many lyrics on this album that I just know I'm not in the right vein, and there's just too
no,
much to unpack.
this is your one time where I'm okay if you don't understand the lyrics.
It kind of sounds like he's like maybe visiting someone who's at a funeral home, maybe for like someone in the family or a friend, and he's like talking about like the coffee there. Like obviously he's not like this is not a song about coffee, but I don't know. That's kind of the most I could pick up from it, but it was kind of intriguing or endearing, is what I mean.
I mean, it has really cool lines like, I looked out your kitchen window where I saw a soulful gymnast melt into the air and shudder just above the snow, making moves that just weren't there. Like, what the
Yeah,
hell is that lyric? But I said it as if it's like a paragraph from like a book, but it works somehow. He makes it work in the song. But it's one of those songs where
right.
like the chorus is just them going, that little thing I did earlier, which I'm sure people don't want to hear again. But
Yeah, but what is good about this? Or also, real quick, I do like the line, "You can never really barely care."
yeah,
I like how it contrasts from like those paragraph like lyrics. Like it was a
yeah.
cool break and kind of a cool moment of clarity. But for me, this song, the sections stand out from each other good. You have like the little melody chant thing, which he does high up later in the song, but he starts it off lower, lower intensity. And then also when it kind of rocks off, it gets real catchy. He has more of a rhythmic vocal approach. And honestly, I think once again comparing it to Fully Completely, I really like when he does kind of a rhythmic part vocally. Um,
I can say that.
and there's one other song in this album which you may be able to guess later. That I really like the vocal and it's quite rhythmic. So yeah, Greasy Jungle. I love the song. It's been stuck in my head the last couple days. It's got
It's
more droning bass to it. Another great bass part.
yeah, that Greasy Jungle took a while to grow on me, if I'm being honest. Like,
Are you kidding
just
me?
because I feel like it didn't fit the album as much as the other songs. Like, it's a
Oh,
lot
get out of here.
lighter. Not that actually the first two songs on this album are actually pretty light too, but like the next song we're going to talk about has a way darker sound, and there's other songs in this album that sound way darker. But um, yeah, I don't know. It's now I like it because I don't know. It gives me like REM influences a little bit. Like
Interesting.
REM would definitely have a chorus where they just said Oz like during like Out of Time, where they were becoming more experimental. So I could totally see this being kind of like an REM type of song. Maybe
Okay.
more like vocally than like yeah, musically. Although the bass, I mean, Mike Mills is also another phenomenal bass player. But
Very much not a Mike Mills based part
no, I
stylistically,
agree. I
but
agree. I agree.
yeah, and
Um,
I like that the song has structure. There are some cool guitar tones in there as well. Yeah, like this song is just enjoyable. I really like it, catchy, bangs. Um, so let's move on to the next song.
let's
This
yeah,
is one I have mixed feelings on.
yawning or snarling.
Yes, yes. Which that by far is the best lyric in the song. Um, saying in the photo he could paraphrase, but like the point of it is saying like in the photo he could be yawning or snarling, like you wouldn't be able to tell.
Hmm.
And I think that's just really interesting and makes for a good title.
I agree.
Now, I don't know if you'll agree with me here, and I'm not the most well versed in this band I'm about to drop here, but it kind of starts off like a Tool song. Just let that sit in for a second.
Yeah, maybe. Again, I don't listen to Tool
I don't
ever.
either.
Not because like I hate them. I'm not into that. Like, I'm not gonna sit there with a calculator and try to figure out the time signature of songs. That's not what I'm about. But like, yeah, it's got a very dark, brooding. It starts off with a dark, brooding bass, which is I think how most Tool songs begin.
Right, right. You get these kind of like sound effect guitars, and then the vocal comes in, and that's what really made me feel like a Tool song. It's like this clean, but kind of like loosely done vocal bit.
Yeah,
And it's good because I want that dynamic in these songs. I think Gord is really good with, doing yelling bits, but then doing these lower bits. But the thing for me though is it's just not a song that I think about when I think about the album. Like it's not one that comes to mind right away.
yeah.
It's almost 5 minutes long, which Grace 2 is already 5.5. Greasy Jungle's 4.5. So it's just I don't know. Maybe a different placement would have been better for me. It's not super hooky, but there definitely is melodies. Um,
The
yeah,
chorus is very
I'm
different than the verses, like in
that is true
tone.
with the bass line that comes in too.
Hmm.
It does kind of like clear up,
Yeah.
there's a little more, there's less fog. Lyrics, maybe you want to kind of explain the lyrics, maybe. It's some sort of like scene, but I don't know. Maybe you can
It's
piece it
again, it's
together.
one of those songs where it sounds like he's starting to tell a story of cops going into a crowd of people in El Paso, Texas. And like, if you do research, like there was like a riot one time in El Paso that like maybe that's what Gord is referencing. But then again, it's like there was a club in El Paso that maybe that's what the song is referencing. And then like the chorus is kind of not like connected to that. Again, it's just like Gord talking about looking at a photograph and trying to figure out if the person in the photograph, if they were yawning or if they were snarling. Because, and it's still, you know, shot of a, photo, you can't always tell the intentions. Um, that said, this is probably the first Canadian band that's had a chorus that starts off with "Take a look at this photograph." So suck that, Nickelback. Um, I love
Oh
yarning
god.
or snarling. It's probably top five for sure. I wanted to say three, but it's one I always love from this album. I just love and I guess the guitar swells in the beginning of the song throughout the bass line is kind of like Tool, I guess. That also kind of is something Tool would do. I just love the bass line and I just love how dark and sinister it sounds. But then like the chorus, it doesn't sound like that. So it does have dynamics, like you were
It
saying.
definitely does. As we're kind of talking about it, I think part of it is it does have dynamics, which I like, and I do think this is a good song. It's not that I don't like it. I just don't know I don't have my solidified thoughts on it. But it's one of those songs where it kind of does the whole dynamic arc like twice. It goes through once, get the chorus, and then it starts low, builds up again, which is totally cool.
Yeah.
But I think because of the production, like I could like skip around in the song and I feel like I'm in the same part over and over again.
But they're
If
not a
that
band
makes
that's,
sense.
yeah, but that's just kind of like how this band is.
Right.
Like the more hip albums I give you, it's not like that opinion is ever going to change for you, I don't think, because they are a band that they kind of stick to a format for each song. And they sometimes will have bridges, but like so far, we haven't had that many bridges on this album, besides like just kind of jam sections.
Right.
And I'm not someone that always needs, bridges and stuff, but there's a lot of people who like do like different structures in their songs. And the hip, you're
I,
not there, they never really get that progressive for the most part.
right. And that's something too I had to get used to is knowing the structures are much simpler on this record. Um and I think part of why I brought up like that I wouldn't really know where I am in the song is because it is like a storytelling song. Even though it's not super clear what it is about, what the story is, I'm trying to follow the narrative. And I do know some of the lyrics repeat kind of a little bit. Like he mentions El Paso again, but doesn't seem to add too much to it. But yeah, it's one that I know will grow on me more. And I think if I were to actually like write down a list, it would end up probably in the top half, probably right in the middle. It's not as quirky as some of the stuff later. Um, Not necessarily saying quirky is upbeat and
Yeah.
happy, but now okay, this next one
Fire in the
now
hole.
yes. So a little backstory here. Rico and I we like to text, kind of maybe give little snippets of thoughts, and as we were planning for a cover for this to end this episode, I kind of mockingly suggested "Fire in the Hole," the most explosive song on this record, and Rico said he does not cover songs he does not like. Is that true, Rico? Did you
I
say that?
I did say that. But this definitely is not like my least favorite hip song, but it's one of my least favorites on the album. Um, yeah, this one I've come to appreciate, but I don't always love like this. To me, this one's kind of similar to like the Wherewithal on Fully Completely. You said that one I think has more layers than this song. Fire in the Hole is just like a punk song, basically. And like the tone fits the album, and the production again is not great, but it does fit the album. But yeah, this one to me doesn't have like it has a melody, but this one is a little bit more barky than like melodic, and I tend to like the more melodic stuff. So
Which this album has very very little of at times.
I don't know if I'd say that, but
So okay,
it's not as melodic as Phantom Power, yeah.
all right, I'm gonna say it. You're gonna be mad at me. You're gonna think this is bullshit. I would probably say top five for sure, maybe even top three. Okay, hear me out. This is the only song that gets significantly elevated by the production. Like this, like slap back on the vocals that makes it sound live. The vocal performance is awesome. It is infectious as energy, kind of the vocal cracking. It starts off with this little kind of like music with sustain on the, this distortion. The drums do this cool like tom sweep thing, and the song just bangs out. It's what, the shortest song on the record, and it's sweet and to the point. And it's what I needed at this point in the record. I needed this burst of energy that's short, that's just catchy, messy in a good way. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not gonna act like I have like paragraphs to share with you about it, but shit, yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't go as far to say that the production elevates the song, but I will say that
Oh, it
it
does.
fits the song the most out of any other song on the album. I will agree with you on that point. I will say this one actually the lyrics are more like you still have to do research to figure out what they mean, but like this song is like specifically about coal miners, and fire in the hole was a term coal miners would use when they like would blast rocks, like, in a mine.
Right.
And but then more specifically, there was a lady who wrote a poem called Fire in the Hole. Her name was Hazel Dickens, and it was like in support of like a labor movement for coal miners in the I think in the United States. And there's specific lines from that song or from that poem that make it into this song, like turn your buckets over, turn your lanterns low. Like, and again, like those are specific things. Like the title is as the reference of coal mining, and the lanterns is what they would use. So like this song actually, like once you do your research, you're like, oh, okay, it's about coal miners, and that's a kind of a cool, unique thing for a band to write a song about. So, and I do like the vocal performance. It's just like I don't know, like I get why you like it because it's kind of short and to the point, and it is like rocking, and it is a good performance, but it's just not a song I go back to much besides listening to, the song on the album. And it has like I said, I like some of the melodies, and I do like the line where um what does he sing? He sings that kid's a fucking goof. I do like that line,
Yeah, the
but
lyrics just sound cool, even without unpacking them. And I honestly, this is one of the ones I didn't really unpack, but as soon as you said it, I'm like, okay, this checks out. Cool to hear though that he took kind of a real physical, like a coal miner job, and he included like a poem with it.
yeah,
I don't know, kind of a cool little hybrid.
but it's in my bottom half for the album for me. Like this is
I understand that. I can totally see it.
yeah.
I think it is hilarious. You said you didn't like it though. That was the biggest shock that I had the whole week.
Yeah, no, I mean I still like it. Like it's not my least favorite hip song, and I like him probably I would say more than most songs on their first album. Because their first album I just really don't connect with because I think they sound like a completely different band. But yeah, it's like my least favorite on probably this album. But it's still good. It's still good.
Fair.
Um
Now I think
Now
this next one
So
will
Hard
be
Done
the
By.
so hard done by. I think this is gonna be the first one we agree on. Great song. It's awesome.
But I did not always have that opinion.
Really, it wasn't like an instant like, yeah,
Mm-mm.
this is cool.
And it's weird because Lindsay's the one that got me into the song. Cause like when I was like getting into the band and I was showing her songs, she gravitated a lot towards this album. Like, and she's not really an album person, but like she liked Grace 2 a lot. Um, she liked this one a lot. And a
Really?
couple others I'm gonna wait to say because I don't want to spoil the surprise. But this is one she really liked. And I was kind of like, but this one, the riff is just so simple. It's like three notes. And I'm like, there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong about being simple, but I'm like, it has a cool groove, but like the guitar playing, like the lead work from Rob, like they're cool, but again, like the tone of the guitar I didn't love. Like it's super like fuzzy and like distorted. Like the distorted part's fine, but like the fuzzy was like, and like I almost felt like the Gore's performance on the song was like lacking a little bit. But the more I listened to the song, the more I realized like it's subtle. Everything about the song, except maybe the lead guitar work, is subtle on purpose. Like it does have a quality to it that can make you groove to the song. And over the years, this one has become like it's not top five for me, but like I used to like say this is like my second least favorite from the album, but it's grown on me. And I will say, and I don't think you knew this until I'm telling you now, that the song was actually written for Fully Completely, and there is a fast rock version of the song that they tried to put on Fully Completely, didn't fit, and then they reworked into this version, put it on this album, and then the fast version didn't get released until years down the road when they did a reissue of Fully Completely. So you'll have to go listen to the original. It's not
I'm
as good.
excited to hear
I'm
it.
just telling you that it's not as good. But that version sounds like Fully Completely, where this version does not sound. It does sound like Day for Night, which is cool.
Right. Okay,
But
I'm
the
excited
song
to
is
listen to
cool.
that.
The song is cool.
All right, I'm gonna pretty much reiterate everything you said, but in the exact opposite light. So I will add this right off the bat, though. The song, okay, when I first heard it with the percussion, and then kind of the simple kind of that's not a muted riff, but it's not as abrasive as some of the other work right off the bat. I was getting nature documentary vibes.
I mean, yeah, I guess with the bongos.
Yeah, right. Kind of a little low riff, like you're in the jungle. But anyways, so after that, I was kind of getting into it, and then I realized later what makes it so good. It's got the porno sounding groove, right?
Well, he does sing about a stripper in the song.
Right, exactly. So it goes hand in hand. LOL. Um, and then okay, the guitar noodling you talked about. It's simple stuff, kind of the same flavor throughout, but it really reminds me of the first song, which I can't remember what it's called. The first song of Jeff Beck's album Blow by Blow. They're these really fuzzy, thin, scraggly tones, and one of the licks that who's the lead guitarist in this band?
Rob Baker.
Rob. What Rob does really reminds me of it. One of the licks from there. So that was cool to hear. I don't know if he's into Jeff Beck even,
Oh, I'm
but
sure. Like Jeff Beck is definitely someone that the whole band would be into. Like I'm even
okay.
sure I've seen every now and then whoever runs Gord's social media pages will post um records in his record collection, and I'm sure I've seen a Jeff Beck one before. Not maybe
Okay.
not that specific one, but
Well, that is cool to hear. I'm glad there's some connection there because I'm like this sounds a lot like that. But it was yeah, it's always cool to hear kind of a nod to other artists that I like. Yeah, so this song, I guess it does kind of follow some of the pitfalls on other songs, at least the ones I find. Like the structure is not really that engaging. The performance is pretty consistent throughout dynamically. But I don't know, it just kind of hits the sweet spot for me. I
yeah.
really like it. Top 5, maybe top 3. Um,
You just like it because it mentions someone with the name Candy, and since Candy's Room is one of your favorite Bruce Springsteen songs
I
now.
did notice that. I did notice that. And
Um,
the groove, okay, Dead and Bloated, you know how it has kind of that, it does kind of the porno groove too? Like, it kind of reminds me of that. And don't act like you don't know what I'm talking about.
no, that's not why I'm making that that expression. I'm just not a huge fan of Dead and Bloated. That's
Not my favorite either of the band. Don't worry.
or don't
We
worry, we'll
can
get into
agree.
that next episode. Don't worry.
Oh, God.
Every time you make a bad note about this album, I'm adding to my list. Don't you think I'm not? Like I'm like Ryan from that Office episode where he's like, "You made the list."
Okay, well, now can we just skip the next song then on that note?
You know what? Before you say anything about the next song, Nautical Disaster is another, in most fans' eyes, another Stone Cold classic. Was the other song they played on SNL, had a music video. People think it's one of Gord's best because lyrically, the whole song is about him singing about like basically a Titanic situation. where um, a boat is like tipping in the water and killing a bunch of people, and there's a whole lot of specific references and then non-specific references in the song. People love the song because there's no chorus, none of the words rhyme. It doesn't fit a song structure in that sense. Now, it does do the thing that you said that a lot of songs on this album does, which is it's the same progression the whole time. And because there's no chorus, there's really only at the end do they change some of the chords. But people love it for the fact that it doesn't have a chorus, that it doesn't rhyme, that it's like, about this like Titanic disaster. Um, and so it's considered one of their best and one of a lot of people's favorites. The song was born from a live performance of New Orleans is Sinking, which you can find video of that on YouTube. People love the song for the history. I like the song a lot. It took a long time for it to grow on me, and I don't consider it a Stone Cold classic. I agree with people when they say like Grace 2 is a classic. This one, I like it, but it would never make my top 5 list for even this album. So if you have the exact same thoughts, I'm actually this is the one song I won't get mad.
Bottom three, easy. Bottom
I don't know.
three.
I want to go bottom 3, but I definitely want to go top 3.
First off, I just don't care about boats, man. Like, he sounds very passionate, and I can appreciate that. I do praise him for that. Arguably, like one of the most passionate on this album. But I'm just not really interested in this whole boat thing. I know that sounds very close-minded, but to quickly counter that, I do really like how the song ends with the fingernails scratching at my hole. That part that's sick. That's sick. Um, but yeah, I mean, and when it started, I was hopeful for it. The way the vocals start, it really reminded me of Emperor Penguin. I like the sound of your trumpet, like that kind of melody,
Yeah, I can see that.
right? And the vocals do serve the lyrics well, but I don't know. The music isn't bad. It's just kind of forgettable, kind of predictable. Um, I feel like the guitar leads could be a little more refined, but it does get big at the end. The highlight for me is kind of after like the first climax, I would say, when he says the dream ends and the band stops. It's almost like a
Yeah,
fake
then
ending.
it kind of then it starts
Comes
building
back
up
in.
again. Yeah, that is
Right. Like
cool.
I always look forward to that part, and that kind of helps me get through it on the album.
Oh God, get through it like
Well,
get the sledge through it.
well, no, okay, but I don't dislike it. I don't think it's bad, but it's just not really my cup of tea. And I'm sure there's probably other songs that fit this description that I do like a lot. But yeah, maybe it'll grow on me more.
I think it will. It took a while to grow on me. My favorite part about the song is that, and for hardcore hip fans that are listening to this, I did not do my notes as well as I normally do. Like I've already done a whole post on Reddit about this song where I did all the research, and some of it has kind of lost my mind. But I'm looking at it again right now, and like specifically, this song is referencing like a specific boat in World War II called the Bismarck.
I
So it's
also
more
don't care about World War II.
well, I'm just saying, like, it's not like a Titanic situation. It's more like a war Titanic situation, if that
Right,
makes
there's
sense.
another song on the album about the actual Titanic. Okay,
Yeah,
great.
true. And but my favorite part is like after all these lyrics at the end, he talks about the dream ending, which is the line you talked about. Then he says, "Anyway, Susan," as if like everything up to that point was him having a conversation with some random lady named Susan.
Yeah, okay. I completely forgot about that, but I do remember seeing that, like reading it and then hearing it and stuff. And I do agree that does elevate the song. Almost like he's on this passionate rant about a freaking boat.
Well, and there's there's stories that I've forgotten where like I think someone I don't know if it was like a journalist for some music magazine or something like he like met with Gore to do an interview I think before this album came out, and like after they had their interview supposedly like the following week he got a postcard in the mail from Gord And when you flipped it over, it just had the lyrics to the song on it, which at that point had not been released because this album had yet to drop. Um, because the song again, it came from a jam during the middle of their song "New Orleans is Sinking," which again maybe that's why there's this nautical disaster, theme to this song because New Orleans is sinking, like. So yeah, the
I
song has like a lot of lore to it that, like, even if I explained it all to you, I don't know if it would change your opinion on the song because it's not the lyrics you have the issue with. It's like the music. And that's kind of where I am at too. Like the music is just, it doesn't,
well, I don't think
there's
the
some days
lyrics
where
are bad, but they're not,
yeah,
they don't give it,
yeah.
they don't do much for me.
So then I'm
Okay.
curious. I'm curious. We go to the next song, which was the last single from this album, Thugs. A lot less lyrics. Like if I'm just looking at the lyrics, comparing them, a lot less lyrics, but this song does have a chorus. Um, you better not say anything bad about this song, or
So
I
do you
will
want to share
find you.
that little story of that phone call we had?
Earlier today.
No, okay. So I called Rico maybe like beginning of the week or something like that.
Okay.
And we're discussing plans for when to record this and stuff. And I was at work and I was like, okay, we both gotta go. I'll keep listening to Thugs. I called the album Thugs instead. So
Ooh.
Rico was kind of curious if there was some,
Okay, I remember
some
that
extra
now.
juice behind that song. I will say this. When I first heard the album, this was one of the standouts for me. It's hard to dislike it. It just kind of grooves, does a rock thing, sustained chords, and it has a chorus. I do the rolling, you do the detail. And it starts off with the best line in the song.
Hmm.
Everyone's got their breaking point. With me, it's spiders. With you, it's me. Why is that so relatable? God damn it.
First of all,
Um,
that is a specific dialogue from a movie that he
I
took.
I did read about that on the
Yeah.
website.
Again, going back to that film noir theme for this album. Continue.
Uh, yeah, and I do like the lyrics in the song. They're a little more digestible, and I kind of decided after reading the lore, kind of before and after, that I think for me, I'm gonna kind of just take the lyrics as my own interpretation, kind of give it my own meaning, which I understand is probably the opposite of what a lot of hip fans probably do want to, seek out. And once again, I am for lore. It's just boats, World War II, um,
Yeah.
Canadian politicians don't necessarily draw
You're
me
not
in.
into historical lore.
Exactly, right? Like a little bit's cool, but anyway, though, a lot of cool lines, even just thugs in perpetuity. I don't know what that really means, but it's cool.
I
Um,
love the cat's indifferent or he's just furious. It seems that he's never neither.
I know this is such a
Cause
bullshit
that's
line,
no, but
but
that's what cats are. They're either mad or they don't care. Like it's either one or the other.
or it's neither.
Um, yeah,
Um, so, anyways, but I will say it got old pretty fast for me.
but
Um, but okay, just musically, because think about it. 2 songs prior, So Hard Done By, it starts off with the whole like percussion thing, right? Just like this song does.
well, okay. The more you listen to hip song albums, you're gonna realize that I actually think if you did the stats, 85% of their songs begins with a simple drum line. No joke. There's
Really,
so
like,
many songs. Yeah. Like that's
okay.
almost like, and I haven't seen a lot of people talk about it, but literally, if you listen to a lot of their songs, especially their earlier work, majority of their songs will begin with drums or bass, sometimes a guitar, but like the majority, it's a drum line, and then they enter in a guitar or a bass, and then like vocals. So, but like the bass line in the song is so good. Like it's simple, but it's so like just
It
catchy.
it's a very short line though, but it is catchy. Um, I will say I do appreciate that the lyrics are easy to hear in the song, a lot easier than some of the other ones. Like if this was mixed like Daredevil, this would have been a wreckage. This
Yeah.
would have been a disaster. No, but okay, yeah. So it's just one where musically, I think at this point, I think there's other songs that do it better. But lyrically, it's a standout. A lot of memorable lines. Although what kind of kills it for me is the chorus lyrics. I do the rolling, you do the detail. It's just like the least captivating lyrics in the song. So I just wish it was done better. And then also the backup vocal, it's not bad. It doesn't take away from the song, but if it was a little cleaner or something, I think it would have helped this song.
I like the chorus lyrics a lot because one, I like think like he's talking about painting. Like he's like if you're like painting your house, like he's saying like, "Oh, I'm gonna do like the main rolling and then you do like the finer details, like the edging and stuff." But the hip were the guys were really into weed too. And they
Like
have, yeah,
pot.
weed. Yeah.
Okay.
No, weeding their house. Yes, pot. And they have like their own brand, like strands of weed,
No
like named
way.
after hip songs. Yeah.
That's pretty sick.
So,
Oh, so I do the rolling.
yeah, I
That
don't know if that, so it's kind of like a double meaning it could have.
right, right.
Um,
Just put Willie Nelson's name in this as well.
Now, if you want me to ruin the song for you, Lindsay said, and I kind of agree with her, that the main like bass line and chords for this song sounds like the chorus of the George Michael song Freedom.
All right, let me look this up.
So
George.
while Tony looks that up, Thugs is one of my favorites on the album. I just like how happy it is, like how upbeat it is. And some of the guitaring at the end, I think, goes a little overboard. Like I do think these songs could have been a little shorter with a little less guitar soloing. But um, I still enjoy Thugs. Um, it is not the most dynamic, but I especially like the bridge where he sings "Honey, Are You Mad at Your Man," which supposedly is like a line that he took from another like country song.
I don't know. I'm not hearing it too well right
It's
now.
that da 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 that part.
It's showing it's like a 6 minute song, so I will definitely check it out a little more thorough. Because I really want to hear the comparison here because
Yeah.
the difference in sounds is quite great. Yeah, so not a bad song, but it I don't know. I think it could have been better, but the lyrics are standout for me.
Okay, well
Um,
let's try to get to a song that you like. I'm
right.
gonna let you say the title of the next one because the next one I can there's a word in the title that I can just never say without messing it up. So I'll let you say it.
All right. And real quick, I did remember reading on Genius the about painting for I do the rolling, do the detail. And that does make the song a lot better. A lot better.
Yeah.
But after I hear it and I just forget about it, it just sounds kind of like a throwaway line
Yeah.
or an insignificant one. But yes, the next song, Inevitability of Death. It's good. It's
Yeah.
good. Best chorus in the whole album. It's good.
Okay, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that, and I'm gonna see if you're gonna venture with me with this statement. This song is the closest they get to writing a song that could sound like the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Whoa, I was not expecting that.
It has a little bit of maybe it's just that opening riff that bow, 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 like it has a little bit. It's not like a funky song, but like even the chorus where he's like, "Thought you'd be the death of inevitability," to just like he's not quite doing an Anthony Kiedis thing, but like this song has a lot of swagger to it that you don't hear in a lot of hip songs.
Okay, funny you mentioned that because to me, the chorus it doesn't really sound like Incubus, but I was kind of maybe leaning towards like that, like more
Oh,
of like
I
a
can see that
modern
too.
Incubus.
Yeah,
But okay, Chili Peppers, you may be onto something.
yeah,
But
like it's
this, yeah,
but it's a good song.
it's a good song. Um, so yeah, first off, it starts off with a chord that is almost, you know what? When the chords first started, I was thinking "Children in Bloom," where it's like kind
Okay,
of dissonant, but
yeah, I can
like
see
also
that.
about to rock out. And then it just goes in with da 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 da, and it's like it just hits hard. Swagger is the correct word. Um, for the chorus, the bass does a nice little like arpeggio thing, which is just
Love the
really
bass.
melodic.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it just sits against like the vocal really well. And I mean, I guess you could say the chorus is a little bullshit. I mean, he says, "I thought you beat the inevitability of death to death just a little bit." He makes it work, man. It doesn't matter what he says. He makes it
Yeah,
work.
it's like a tongue twister that once you start singing it, you almost can never mess it up because it just flows so well.
Right, right.
It
No,
seems like
well
it should be a
said.
lot harder to sing than it is. Um, and this is another one where I think when I did research for it, like it's, in the second verse, there's a line about where he sings Terry's gift is forever green. And Terry was a real person that Gord knew who um ended up having cancer and passing away. And, the song is like, again, it's about death, and he was the inspiration for the song. So, it has like meaning to the song. Even though the chorus just seems like it's super fun and just, catchy. And
So
then there's a cool spot in the song where he sings Fat Fantastic Gap. And when he sings that, the band stops. And then he
yeah,
says, come in space, and they stop again, and then they start playing again, which I always like when bands do that.
that was the icing on the cake for me.
Yeah.
That was just like a really nice detail. And we haven't really actually like talked about too much on these songs about like the meanings or how to interpret the lines.
Hmm.
But yeah, I did read about the whole Terry's gift type of thing. Although I will say now that you mention their passion for weed, Terry's gift is forever green. No, but I thought you beat the death part. It kind of to me sounds like cool, like you're going to pass. You know death is coming. It's inevitable for everyone. But just for a little bit, you like conquered it.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's I don't know. It just kind of rubs me the right way.
And I
Not to
also
go back
just,
to so hard done by, but
I also just like the line he sings, "We don't go to hell, just our memories do." But then he says, "But if you go to hell, I'll still remember you." Which
yeah, okay, yeah, that's a good one.
it almost seems like it's like a burn towards someone, like a diss, but it also could be not. It could be the opposite. It could be like whether you end up in heaven or hell, like I'll still remember you.
Yeah, yeah. This song has like a positive. It's a feel good song,
Yeah, but with like a '90s kind of grungy thing where it's
right?
like it sounds like a Pearl Jam was to do like it doesn't sound like Dirty Frank, but it sounds like that song. But it's like if unlike Pearl Jam made a Chili Pepper song about Jeffrey Dahmer, so it's kind of dumb. But Tragically Hip, they make that sound to a song that actually has a lot of meaning to it.
Okay, yeah, kind of a
An
winding
outlier,
statement, but
well, yeah, it's just like an outlier in their discography, but like in a good way.
yeah, and,
Um,
and I take back what I said. Fire in the Hole, they were able to craft a really good sort of like live raw demo sound, but I think this song is probably the best of the production. Like it's very 90s, but it's kind of like
yeah,
rough and open. Like it just works.
it is fitting. It is fitting. So now we get to Scared, which is like the first, like, besides like So Hard Done By, like the first kind of slower song on the album. And it is the first and really only like, well, not only, but it's the first like acoustic song. It's kind of like the Wheat Kings on the album. And like Phantom Power had a lot more acoustic tracks. Like, so even though you can say Bob Cajun, you can also say Thompson Girl, and you could also say like Fireworks, but like this one is like kind of the outlier in this album where it's like super acoustic and more stripped back and bare bone. So I'm curious if that made you appreciate this song because it sounds so different than the rest of the album, or if you found it like an outlier like Wheat Kings, where maybe you've just found it like a little bit more on the boring side.
And I do really like Wheat Kings. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I don't remember what I necessarily said during our episode, but I do like Wheat Kings.
Well, you
it's
don't
just
remember
easy to
our
listen.
very first episode? No,
uh,
over 2 years ago now.
yeah, shame on me. Scared. I really liked it even off first listen. I will say it was nice breath of fresh air to hear acoustic, and I think it's one of the most palatable vocals of Gord's. A lot of the songs on this record have these kind of like I don't know, real scraggly vocals and kind of a like a little voice thing he does. But this one, it just felt very genuine.
And smooth.
He's smooth, yeah. And the acoustic sound is really weird. They opted for the same kind of spongy bass tone thing, but they have this acoustic that like has the quality of kind of like a budget I mic'd up my acoustic sound, but with the plinkiness of like a DI acoustic. I'm not the best at identifying these things, but they made it work though. I don't know how they managed it. And it's cool. Something I noticed actually today is the acoustic part. Like there's kind of chords, but a lot of it is single notes,
Hmm.
like kind of like a melodic line that kind of goes interplays with the bass. And I don't know, I just thought that was an interesting arrangement. And this song, I'm sure there's so much to unpack from the lyrics. The best I could do is it just sounds like he's sharing scary history stories to someone. Like they're just trading like ghost stories, which I'm sure is not the case at all. But I don't know. That's how I enjoy it.
Well, this song, and I just listened to their live album, Live Between Us, which came out after their next album, Trouble at the Hen House, where I can't remember exactly what he introed the song with saying something about like something about trying to sell people like textbooks or something like that. The whole point of the song is it's like from the perspective of like traveling salesmen. And it's about like these guys going door to door trying to sell people fear, which is maybe what you're referencing with like the narrator of the song, like telling scary stories. Like that's what that's why he's like, there's lines in the song where, um, what's the line? Let's see here. Well, like at the very end of the song where he's like, it's been a pleasure doing business with you. Like, I gotta go.
Mm,
Um, and there's like, he sings, I gotta say, this sounds a little beyond anything I'm used to. If I'm unclear, can I get out of this thing between me and you? Um, there's a part
okay,
where
it's
he's singing
coming
about
together.
focus groups that can prove this is all nothing but cold calculation. Like, and then like later on, he's like singing about tests have shown and blah blah blah. So like, but yeah, then there's like random things about like being at a museum in Russia and like how like when the Nazis storm in, like they find the whole place dark and they think that God's left the museum for good. Like there's just some kind of eerie lines at the end too, where he's singing about um kids on the beach wading through blood. Like,
Right. Like it is, I mean, that would scare someone. Now, okay, taking the salesman approach, it really does add up, even though I kind of wish this was done more in a wholesome, like we're close friends or like have like some sort of like love between each other.
yeah.
So at the end, he says, "Okay, you made me scared. You did what
Hmm.
you set out to do." How do you kind of interpret that in this perspective? If you're trying to sell fear, what scared the seller?
Yeah, that I actually don't know. Um, I was going on the Hip Museum to see if there's like a specific, and I don't really see one. Yeah, that I don't know. I don't know if that was done on purpose or if he just wanted to kind of change the pronouns around a little bit. Um,
Right, right. And I'm not asking that as in like, well, Gord, what did you mean? I'm just
yeah,
curious. I do like this song. Because it is a good change of pace for the album. I don't want to I mean, I would say maybe top 5. I really like it. It's easy to listen to, and
it grew on me a lot. This one too.
even though you could do the nautical disaster approach, like I don't really care about Russia. Um and no hate to Russia, I guess. I don't anyways, I'm gonna shut up. So,
Let's not go
well,
down that route.
yeah, that ignore everything I said. So, I do like the hook though. The did I make you scared or
Yeah.
did I butcher that? Yeah, I don't know. It's just a nice little phrase, and the way he says it delicately is great.
And this was a song they played most nights on their last tour. And people got very emotional at the end when he sang the line, I gotta go, but it's been a pleasure doing business with you.
Oh,
Because again, most people were like, this is the last time I'm ever going to see this band live because there's there's no cure for the cancer that Gord had. And so that line hits really hard when you're seeing him perform this song for the last time ever. So and again, that's the song. The rest of the lyrics have nothing to do with that. And when he wrote the song, that wasn't his intentions, but it's just one of those lines that hits just like during, Courage, it couldn't come at a worse time. Like when he sang that song during the last concert, that had a bit of irony to it that just felt like, whoa. Like that hits way differently now,
Okay, I could see that.
So, but again, that has nothing to do with the specific album, but I thought I'd share that. Now we're coming to the point of the album where these next two songs definitely had to grow on me. Um, these ones were not initial favorites of mine. But the latter of the two I really enjoy now. But this next song, An Inch an Hour, I would be shocked if this one was like in your top five.
Um, Maybe on my first listen through, this one was like exciting to hear,
It does have a nice
but
energy to it.
right, right. But to me, it's the lionized on the album. It's easy to get into. It's hard to dislike. It's catchy, got a good hook, but it's got some kind of quirky lyrics. I mean, nothing as crazy as "Cold Wind Blowing on Your Private Parts," but I just like the hook. An inch an hour, 2 feet a day. Like that's cool.
I mean,
Um,
I'm no mathematician, but I have done the calculations,
you've done the cold calculations.
and an inch an hour does equate to 2 feet a day.
This is why
So
you guys listen to the podcast for
yeah,
the verification. So
um, it's a cool song. Like
yeah, something I noticed, and this is a small little thing. I don't know if you've picked it up, but on some of the words, like it's right at the beginning when he says disenfranchised punks. When he says punks, the P really burst out, the plosive.
I think it's like the microphone they use. YouTube, there's a couple of YouTube songs on a specific album. I can't remember which one. I think Pop, where when he says the P's, they do that
It
same kind of thing.
pops the mic.
Yeah.
Well, I actually kind of liked it in this song. I think it kind of fit kind of the vibe of it, just energetic. And there's a Primus song, as you know, Too Many Puppies, and
Hmm.
there is no care on any of those P's, even though he's saying it the
Yeah.
whole time. And it just gives a vibe.
This one
Um,
has nice wordplay in it.
right. It's kind of like to me, it just has some clouded meaning, like or the meaning is clouded, but the
Yeah.
lines are just cool. I want a book that makes me drunk. I'm kind of like but it's just there's just lines that kind of build personality to it.
Yeah.
There's
My
this
favorite.
fucking band you
Yeah.
gotta see. They used to scare the living shit out of me.
The second time he's used fuck in a song on this album, and both times they just seem really random, which this is why I kind of like them.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And I will say I do like that later in the song there's a more a verse that kind of paints the scenery. It's more like imagery. Tonight the winter may have missed its mark. You can see your breath in Springside Park. Coffee colored ice and peeling birch bark. The sound of rushing water in the dark.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
cool.
he writes lyrics that, like, if you just said that line out loud and I didn't know the song, I would. There's artists that I would think of like Tom Waits, where I'm like, that could be maybe like a Tom Waits line.
Okay.
With, I mean, maybe more intentional rhyming than Tom Waits would do, but like these just imageries that, like, I feel like maybe not the average songwriter would come up with.
That's fair. I will say I did notice the variety in approaches for the lyrics. Like you look at a Chili Peppers song. You don't even need to know who wrote it. You know it's the Chili Peppers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And all their songs for them a large portion of their songs have the same lyrical style. But with this record, it seems to be all over the place. So I don't know. I don't think that's a bad thing, but I don't know if it's necessarily a good thing.
I can see that.
But yeah, so this song is solid. It gets a little old quickly, like Lionized, but I like it, and I think it's good to follow Scared with. Now you
And
said it was one of your least favorites right off the bat.
like, yeah, when I first heard this album, it was one that kind of was so hard done by. It took me a while to connect to. And it's still not like in my top five, but I've definitely appreciated more. I like you said, it's the song you need after a song like Scared. You need the energy to pump back up.
Especially
Um,
because Scared's like, yeah, it's 5 minutes long, and so
yeah, it
this
is.
is the shortest or second shortest.
But I will say the next song I kind of like more because the next song, Emergency, it kind of has more textures and tones to it that I prefer. Does it sound kind of more like the rest of the album, like tone wise? Yeah. So maybe you'll won't like it as much in that regards, but I kind of like how they're gonna go back into this darker kind of approach with Emergency.
I will say this: when the song starts, I am really hooked in. I really like that tremolo guitar. And it starts off with Gore just kind of doing not a super melodic vocal, but it's a nice different energy than some of the other ones. It's not aggressive and raw, but it's a little higher pitched. And I don't know. I think it's gonna grow on me more. The backup vocals are fine. Um, the lyrics, I mean, off first listen, didn't do a lot for me, but there are some standout lines. I think my favorite is when everything seems either funny or lousy, and then and then there's like the wah guitar throughout.
Hmm.
I think you're right. It has good textures to it. As a song compositionally, is it the strongest? No. Where would I put it compared to the other songs? Maybe in the middle. It's not bottom three.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
it is harder for me. Yeah, I wouldn't put this above Grace 2. I wouldn't put it above Yawning or Snarling or even like Daredevil. But yeah, it is. I do like it more than like um An Inch an Hour or Fire in the Hole, you know.
I think for me too, at this point in the album, because this is a longer album, so what? We're probably oh yeah, we're like 45 minutes in. I think maybe at this point, a song like that, it's harder to maybe pay attention to,
Yeah.
or maybe I'm a little bit exhausted of that sound. So I do want to kind of keep that in mind. It's a little hard to rate. But it did grow on me already because at first I was like, this song's kind of forgettable. It's not bad. Um, but I am looking forward to hearing it more, and hearing the textures is really nice. A good switch up. Something I've noticed with this album is there'll be like a couple songs I'm vibing with, and then maybe a couple in a row I don't, and then a couple more I really like. It's kind of back and forth, but I kind of can appreciate that in a way instead of every other song loving and then hating. I don't know. I will say it does give this album some personality, especially for one that feels a bit muted because of
Yeah.
production.
Now I meant to
So,
ask you earlier, sorry, really quick, is because every now and then you'll say like, "Oh, this song isn't in my top three." You say it is in your top three. Do you have a specific favorite song on this album or not? Because I would assume no, unless it's one of these last two songs.
okay. I don't know why I struggle with putting like a number one favorite on this
Yeah,
record.
and but you don't have to. I'm just curious.
If I had to pick one, just like a solid answer, I'd probably say Greasy Jungle.
Which
It's
is I would not
melodic.
have guessed that.
It's so catchy. It's catchy, but it has substance to it.
Yeah,
You know, I would probably say that is my favorite. It's got a good vibe. Um, but then after that, it's hard because right now I really like Fire in the Hole. I wouldn't put it number two, but like maybe number three. But I know that song won't have as much um, replay value as some of the other ones. But I am excited to talk about these next two songs, and I am actually curious to hear a lot about what you're going to say about it. You would even mention potentially covering Titanic Terrarium, and that kind of raised my ears. A little curious what you feel of it.
I
For
just
me, no. How about you start this time? How about you start?
it's one of my favorites on the album because it's kind of like with Inevitability of Death, where it feels like an outlier in a good way. This to me is like one of their more interesting songs, lyrically, musically, and this one I vibe with. And this is one maybe two I vibe with even more because it was one Lindsay really loved on first listen. This one, Yarny and Snarling, Grace 2, Thugs, So Hard Done By, like those are her favorite. Inevitability of Death, those are like her favorites. But
Okay.
um, yeah, this one has a very unique sound that I was curious. I mean, if you like Scared, I feel like you would like this one too.
Okay, yeah. So when it first started playing, when I first heard it, I didn't dislike it. I didn't think it was bad, but I was like, okay, it's acoustic and slow like Scared. The vocals a little rougher, but it does have a mood to it. And so fortunately quickly I figured out this is a vibe track. And actually I will say I'm not sure if it is the penultimate track on a Phantom Power, but isn't Escape at Hand is the Traveling Man? Isn't that like the second to last song?
Yes.
And I really like that one. So I am kind of vibing with the placement of it. Um, and once I read the lyrics, immediately liked the song a lot more. Some interesting stuff going on. I'm not quite sure if there's some I don't know how you explain it. So I'm not sure the scale of the lyrics. It sounds like he could be talking about like some call for action for humans, for the world, for people. But I also could see how it could be about maybe just someone living like a sheltered life, wanting things to be within their reach, comfort zone or something. I don't know, but I actually really like the ambiguity of it. Like there's a lot of detailed descriptions, kind of he calls out a guy in a blimp for good tires because what would he know about rubber tires? Like that's a great
Yeah.
line.
Good. You mean Goodyear?
Goodyear,
Yeah,
yeah.
the brand. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes. And it kind of reminds me of what is the song? Emperor Penguin in a way, where he kind of
Okay.
pulls out these random kind of
Hmm.
sentences and little calls and stuff. Although I kind of like it more in this song. I feel like it pieces together better. And the highlight of the lyrics for me, let me pull it up so I don't goof it up. But it's or you probably know it. It's the one about miracles are reversible.
Yeah. If there's glory in miracles, it's that they're reversible.
Yeah,
Very cool line. Yeah, that's like one of the standout lines in this whole album for me.
I don't know if it's just because it's the end of the album and sometimes you get fatigued or I feel like I often don't hear that end as much because sometimes I'll start listening to the album and then I get distracted or something.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot to say about it. Like I like the bass work. The bass sounds a lot creamier than spongy in
Hmm.
this track. The guitar, as you had mentioned to me, is kind of banjo like,
Yeah.
which is a cool texture. And Gord's performance is very consistent throughout. It's not dynamic, but the consistency makes it kind of eerie. I don't know. It
Well,
it vibes hard.
the song even has these like sound effects that happen at the end of like the choruses, where it's like boom, boom, boom. I don't know what it is, but Lindsay like when she first heard the song, she loved that part. Like I don't know if it's a some type of like keyboard synth or guitar, but it sounds like
Oh,
something. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, that's right.
and
I'm,
it
I'm
kind of
listening to it right
it is
now.
very vibey. Yeah, this is a song that
It's a subtle song.
I think the song would go hard if you were high.
Well, I
It's
know
just
what I'm
like,
doing after this podcast. Grace 2 followed up by Titanic Terrarium.
and I actually thought that's what the lyric was when he sings, "There's a trace of mint wafting in from the north, so we don't fuck with the 401." I thought that had to do with weed, but actually, so 401 is like a highway, and I guess
Yes,
like
it.
if there's a trace of mint, if someone says that, it means that there's a storm coming, which is why he's singing, if you smell mint, don't fuck with the 401 because you don't want to be on the highway when there's like a blizzard coming. Um,
Right, right.
but
It's
yeah,
bigger than us and larger than we bargained. Follows it right after, which once again it makes it seem like is this like about the disasters that humans have created? I don't know. Like it really is kind of a confusing song, but I like it. And after hearing this, I am really curious about going back to Emperor Penguin and seeing if I would like it a lot more, like from a lyrical kind of
yeah. Well,
narrative way.
I mean, I like that you're trying to make your drawing, from different songs of theirs that you've now heard and listened to. I think Emperor Penguin is a little bit more straightforward than this song. Like I think Emperor Penguin definitely is about parenthood and parenting. Um, but it does have like broader, you know, narratives of like society. And I think that's what this song does, but on a more grand scale, but also in a more nuanced scale. Cause like, yeah, there's some standout lines where he's like talking about growing up in a biosphere, so you have no respect for bad weather. And there's a lot of weather in this song, because then later on he's singing about
Storm.
um what's the line? We don't declare war on idleness when outside it's cold and shitty, you know?
Oh yeah, that line always stands out the way he says it.
And then I love the fact too, he's like, my great grandfather was a welder. He helped build the Titanic. He didn't certainly think that it was unsinkable.
Right, right.
Because so many people thought it was unsinkable, but it's like, oh, he was a welder on it, and he definitely didn't think that it was unsinkable.
Yeah, it is very the song's kind of all over the place to me. Like he says, so when he talks about the biosphere, he talks about roaches and ants being resourceful and clever. Something so small and like not human, right?
Yeah.
And then he talks about the weather. Oh, we don't fuck with the 401. Like this weather is bigger than us. We can't handle it. And then like you just said, talk about the Titanic, like something we built that's big and supposed to be powerful. And we don't declare war. And then miracles being reversible. Like I don't know. It's
Well,
really intriguing.
and the thing about the title, it's called Titanic Terrarium, where terrarium is like a biosphere, and maybe it's the idea of like something being like Titanic, where it's supposed to be indestructible, indestructible, and this huge invention of the future, just like where he sings his great grandfather saw the future, didn't know nothing about panic. Like, yeah, yeah. So it's like the song could have so many different meanings that who knows if Gord even had one specific meaning, as opposed to, like you said, it's kind of open for interpretation.
Right. And don't get me wrong. A song does not need to have a meaning to be a good song
Yeah.
even. The lyrics could
Which
just sound cool or something, but
really also kind of goes for the closing track on this album, Impossibilium, where I just did a write up for next week's Song of the Week for Reddit on this song. And so I was diving into the lyrics, and this is a song where I also don't know what it's about.
right,
But
right.
I really like, and Possibilium, I think, is an underrated. I think it's maybe the most underrated on this album. Like, they have a lot of great closers, so I don't know if I could say it's like a top three album closer for me.
Oh, not for a closer, no.
Well, because like musically, it doesn't sound like a closer. Where, well, it's kind of like El Dorado. El Dorado doesn't seem like a closer either. Where Emperor Penguin does sound like a closer. Um,
Right.
but I really like Impossibilium. I actually think this song has maybe the best production on the album. It doesn't to me sound, like the guitar tones and bass tone and drums all sound really good. Maybe the vocals are the only thing that sounds like the rest of the album, but I love this song just because I love the energy. It's got a driving tempo, and it has a lot of cool standout lines in this song.
And real quick, just to get out of the way with, there is the lyric, but your finger starts to wiggle
Ah,
and landscapes emerge,
glad you
which
caught that. Emergency.
is an emergency. Yeah, it's like two songs before.
Yeah. And
So
that's something he would do live on stage during the Fully and Completely tour. He would,
wiggle his finger.
well, he would start going off in this rant where he's like, yeah, wiggle your fingers and landscapes emerge. And then he put that into two songs on the next album, which is something
And
he
it's
would do
weird.
more. He would do that more and more often. There's literally on their album World Container, there's a set of lyrics that appears in three of the songs on the album.
Wow.
Two of them begins the same line begins both songs.
That is interesting. And something that I thought about is because, when I noticed this, I'm like, they're close together on the album. These songs don't really seem to relate to each other, and I don't even think that line alone is that descriptive, at least not with the context given. But then I
Yeah.
quickly thought to myself, XO, we've done, not that long ago. The first two songs say deaf and dumb and done. And I guess there's not really that much of a special emphasis on it, or in the context, it's not something super meaningful or impactful necessarily. So I don't know. It's just it is cool to see callbacks and stuff, even if it's not, a game changer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I almost feel like if maybe the lyrics were a little more, had a clearer message or kind of something to it, I think I may enjoy the song more. But I agree, it has a lot of energy. It's driving. To me, this feels like a shottier, fully completely like the song.
I can see
Like
that.
it kind
Yeah.
of sounds like he's talking about like a relationship with all the roses. So like especially roses are worth more dried than alive. Such a you thing to say. How I adore you when you reinvent the rosy cliche. Probably my favorite line in this song.
Yeah. That's my favorite line too. Just because it's like just the line that, oh, that's such a you thing to say. Definitely something like you would think of when you're in a relationship with someone else. But even to the very first line, I mean, he almost starts like I wrote in my write up that like lyrically, when you read the song without the music, you think this would be like a ballad because he starts it off with singing "I love you" even when I don't know I'm doing it. Um, and then again the line that you talk about where he's like, "Oh, how I adore you." And then in the last verse, he goes back into the roses imagery and he sings about how they're difficult. And then randomly, the next line, he just sings, "You must promise me that you'll stay." And then he goes back into the roses where he's singing about how the stems are freakishly long, but if we cut them down to the vase, they'll be okay. Like it is like I don't know if he was like trying to write a love song, but then trying to disguise it with other things and not make it so
Especially,
obvious, which
especially
is kind
because,
of cool.
but if he's gonna try and make it not obvious, why would he drop roses everywhere, like a very typical symbol of love or romance?
By disguising it with a different take on it, which is that they're worth more dried than alive.
I guess you're right. I guess you're right.
And then he calls it out by saying how this person reinvented the roses cliche.
True. Okay, that is kind of cool. He's a little bit self aware with that line.
Yeah. But then I don't know
Um,
what the rest of the lyrics are, like the chorus where he's like, "Can you spare some change?" And then he's singing about, in the
we've only got
chorus.
300 feet to go.
I thought that was somehow a callback to an inch an hour
Oh,
because they're singing about,
oh.
you know, feet and inches in that song. So, but I don't know, like 300. I'm like, I was trying to do math and I'm like,
So okay,
is
you
it like
get 2 feet a
an inch a
day,
day?
100. What? So that would be 150 days to go, like less than half a year.
Yeah. See, I couldn't do math to make it make sense, but he's so specific with we only have 300 feet to go. To go for what? And then like even the phrase impossibility, I'm like that word. It is a word. I did
Is
some
it?
research. It comes from a Latin word, impossible. It comes from a Latin word that is spelled very closely to impossibilium. But in the
Interesting.
context of this song, I don't know what it has to do with anything. And for a payload, like, and then when he sings about lift the rocket out of this pocket, I'm like, oh, in nautical disaster, he sings about a rocky socket. Like, I don't know, like there was just like, is he referencing other songs, but like very in a subtle way, like, and that's why I like this song because it's kind of like Titanic, where it's like you're trying to piece the puzzle together, and even when you don't think it fits, it's cool.
Okay, I will say this. I right before you started talking about the chorus, I was gonna say the chorus honestly like almost takes the song down a notch for me. The lyrics, because he just feels so disconnected. And I was getting into the lyrics, but every time I hear the chorus, I'm just like especially because a chorus should be good lyrics. I guess I don't think that's unfair to say. But now that you said inch an hour callback, that is a game changer.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this is one that's gonna grow on me more. I think for me, I guess maybe musically, it feels a little not that I wouldn't say it's underdeveloped. I don't know. Maybe because I'm comparing it to Fully Completely, which I think is a really well crafted song, like a 10 out of 10 song. Roughly saying, I'm not doing the math, not doing the cold calculation. Um, but I will say that especially after a few listens, whenever they do that distorted picking bit, like how they start the song, like that's vibey. That kind of hits the
Yeah, that's a
feels
cool
for whatever
intro.
reason.
And then there's a part near the end of the song where like the guitars drop out and it's little bit of percussion and the bass doing like a couple times, and then the instrumentation comes back. Like that's cool. To me,
Right.
this is like a faster version of Nautical Disaster. And honestly, I much prefer this song to Nautical Disaster. Like it has a similar vibe, just like faster. This one does have a chorus and whatnot, but and it rhymes more, but I don't know, like it's a weird closer, but I think it does fit the album as a closer. Like I don't think another song on this album would have closed the album better. Although I've heard some people say Titanic would have closed the album out better, but I'm a fan of more of a upbeat, faster closer, and this does fit that mark.
Even though like this whole album I've been talking about the ambiguity of the lyrics, how there's a lot to unpack. Um, but I think Titanic would have been a little too much of a cliffhanger almost. Like I don't know. Like I
Yeah,
really like the vibe, but it wouldn't be satisfying for the end.
yeah,
Now, Impossibilium, I'm not gonna lie, it's not my favorite right now, but I know it can be top half easy. It just has to grow on
yeah.
me more to get used to it, which I
That's
know is
what.
kind of a bold
Yeah,
thing to say. Oh, I'm gonna love it later, but
and I
uh,
do think a lot of both of us have been saying a lot during this episode that these songs have to or will grow on us. Which I'm sure some people are like, then why did you recommend this album if you didn't even like most of the songs to begin with? For me, a lot of it was production. It's just like you really have to like get a feel for the mood of this album to kind of understand where they're going for the production. Because funny enough, the next album, Trouble at the Hen House, that was their first and only self-produced album. So you think
interesting.
that album would be the one that sounds like this, but no, the next album sounds a lot cleaner.
The one song I know from there, Ahead by a Century, right?
Mm-hmm.
I will say I love that song. That song is
Yeah,
fantastic, and the production sounds great on that song. That song sounds
yeah.
great. So that is crazy.
And they mentioned they never did it again because they didn't realize how like hard it would be to do a self-produced album.
Right, right.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. Especially
So,
when you're like in the middle of in between like a tour and like actually writing the album. That
and it
sounds
was
like a
their
lot of work.
first album they recorded at their own studio they built called the Bathhouse Studios in Canada.
Oh, cool.
So it was a lot of like first time doing this, first time doing that for them during that album process. And yeah, it spun some of their biggest singles like Ahead by a Century, Gift Shop, and whatnot. And like I said, that's the album I'm going to give you next because it'll kind of, I think that album, the puzzle pieces will fit better for you. You'll understand how they got from Foley to this, and then between the next album to Phantom Power, it'll make more sense.
Right. And something too, before we get too far away from it, you had mentioned, well, why do we give each other albums where there's things that we know we won't like right off the bat, they'll
Mm-hmm.
grow on them. But I think a big part of that, it's planting the seeds. It's letting you know, here's how I listen to it and why I enjoy it. Think about it. And it challenges each other to like, not just to be open minded, but it just challenges our taste and our appreciation for things.
I agree.
And we have, talked about maybe doing an episode where we may re-examine some previous albums we've given. And yeah, I think I will have a lot of new comments to say. Just with Phantom Power, I really undersold it. Uh, and I like it
Yeah.
much more now. Um, but yeah, that's kind of my ramble. If I were to, what are my overall thoughts on the album? I definitely like it. Not as much as Fully Completely or Phantom Power. I have not listened to Fully Completely that much in general, though. I didn't burn myself out, but I just haven't been feeling the
Yeah.
craving for it, the calling. But I think this album will grow on me more. I've been listening to it a lot, trying to get to where I am now with it. So I probably will take a bit of a break from it. But I do think it is a cool side of the band to see, a cool shade of them. And I am genuinely excited for Trouble at the Hen House, especially considering I'm ahead by a century. I love it.
And I will say this. I personally I don't want to give you that album next, but I was talking to my friend JD, who is the one that has his own.
Salinger?
No, but he's the one that has multiple hip podcasts, and he's the one that I co-host the REM podcast with, which
Nice.
you're an REM fan. It's called the REM Breakdown. You can go check it out on anywhere where podcasts are streamed.
Check out their social media pages.
Yeah, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever the hell it's called. But he said that when he gets people into the hip, that's the first album he gives them is Trouble in House, and I was shocked because that's their weird experimental album. And yeah, it's like their Vitology in a sense. Bro, like it's think about it. Vitology is experimental album, but what is the big hit from it? Better Man. Better Man is their like Ahead by a Century, where it's a super pop friendly, radio friendly song.
Okay, well, first off, Ahead by a Century is a much better song than Better Man.
But like you can see where I'm coming from. Like just because you don't like
Yeah,
Better Man as
yeah.
much Ahead by a Century, like it's a decent comparison.
Right.
And I'm not.
It's hard to hate it off the bat.
Thankfully, there's nothing as bad on Trouble in the House. There's nothing worse than like Stupid Mop off Vitology. But you get some
Right.
weird songs, and that's why I didn't want to give you that album because like there are like a handful of tracks that are like maybe you could say filler. Um, where this album, even like your least favorites, I don't know if you'd say they're filler. You're just like I don't dig the vibe as much. Where definitely Trouble in the House, at least for me as a fan, has some filler. And there's some other albums of theirs. I would just be more curious about your thoughts. And Violet Light is one of my favorites, and that's like 2 albums after Phantom Power. The one after that album, In Between Evolution, that's like their grunge album because they actually recorded it with Adam Casper in Seattle, the guy
Oh,
who
yeah.
helped record Riot Act for
I
Pearl
forgot you
Jam.
mentioned that, yeah.
So, and that's just like a great, like that's kind of like their Avocado album where it's just like every song is a rocker. Like there's a couple slower songs, but it's like their heaviest album up like in a while since like this album. And then even like their even the album after Phantom Power, music at work, that one has experimental moments as well, but in a way cleaner way, in a more thoughtful way, at least in my opinion, than Trouble at End House. So, but I just think it makes sense to give you Trouble at End House next. So you're kind of going a little bit chronologically, or at least like again, you'll have like that whole stream of albums together, that 4 album run.
Right, right.
So,
So,
the last question: would you get this on vinyl?
um, well, I will say this. If I go to a record store, so you have got me started, right? With Fully Completely. You had
Mm-hmm.
gifted me so kindly. I went to a record store and I saw Phantom Power. I would probably pick it up. I don't know if I would put it back by the end of the haul. If I saw Day for Night, I would probably say I'll get it down the road.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so now that you've been hyping up, well, hyping up is maybe not the best word for it, but now that you've been informing me about what to expect with Trouble at the Hen House, if you do end up giving it to me, it's kind of making me think about the album I'm giving you next. Tiny Music, ... Songs from the Vatican Gift Shop. Now,
Yes.
by far the band's most experimental album, and I could see the case for saying there is some filler on it. Not to get too ahead of myself, I would disagree, but I'm not gonna act like that is. I saw that facial response, um, but we'll save it for the next one. But it is definitely one where the production, like this album, could be a turnoff. It is not the cleanest sounding record. There are some rough edges, and it's definitely more experimental than Day for Night for sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, until then, though.
Yeah. So that's what we're covering next episode. Will be Tony's suggestion of Tiny Music from Stone Temple Pilots. So stay tuned for that episode. Thank you. I'm sure this episode's like 2 hours long. So if you've stuck around this long, we appreciate it. And stay tuned to the very end because you're going to be hearing a cover performed by me of So Hard Done By. So check that out. Drop us a comment. Let us know if you enjoyed this Tragically Hip album. And until next time, we hope everyone takes care and you'll be hearing from us soon. Bye-bye.
Interesting and sophisticated, refusing to be celebrated. It's a monumental big screen kiss. It's so deep it's meaningless. One day you'll just up and quit, and that'll be it. Just then the stripper stopped in a coughing fit. She said, sorry I can't go on with this. Yeah, that's awful close, that's not why I'm so hard done by. It was true Cinnamon Cliff. You should see it before there's nothing left. In an epic too small to be tragic, you'll have to wait a minute, cause it's instamatic. Yeah, that's awful close, that's not why I'm so hard done by. Just then the room became more dimly lit as the MC carried on with it. Now that I got you all strangely compelled, I'm afraid Candy's not feeling well. Close, that's not why hard done by.